60 Minutes Overtime.
Got it. Good.
This week on 60 Minutes, we're doing a story about a photo album that was sent to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. in 2007. It turned out to be the personal scrapbook of an SS officer named Karl Hocker, who worked at Auschwitz.
We looked through the SS records.
Our story centers around a new play that was written by Moises Kaufman. And for the last 14 years, Kaufman has been working to try to bring this story to life on stage.
This album portrays the world the Nazis envisioned.
The name of the play, Here, There Are Blueberries, comes from a series of photos that are in this album. And Karl Hocker, in his album, wrote, Here, There Are Blueberries.
There were just, teenage girls who were secretaries. Everyone is showing the photographer their empty plates. But there's one of the women who's pretend crying. So she's so sad because she's run out of blueberries. And outside of the frame, there's 1.1 million people who are being killed.
Amanda Gronick is the co-writer of Here, There Are Blueberries.
They were the switchboard, telegraph, and radio operators. Many of these young women, can you imagine, they're leaving their family for the first time. Imagine, that's how you go off to take your job in a concentration camp. And one of the things the play explores is how much did they know about what was going on.
Rebecca Erbelding is a historian at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., and she's the person in 2007 who received this album in the mail. The album itself is now stored at a high-security facility. You see photographs of lots of young women at the camp. It turned out they were sort of secretaries to Karl Hocker. They were called Hilferinnen, or helpers. And they weren't just young women who got drafted and sent there. These were young women who were true believers, who grew up with Nazi ideology.
Many of them had been members of the BDM, the female version of the Hitler Youth. And so in the National Archives here in the US, you can actually go and you can read some of their application essays where they say, I have been a loyal member of the BDM. This is my way of serving my country. And so these are women who had chosen to be here, essentially.
They knew full well what Auschwitz was.
Yes. Part of the communication that they had to do was communicating the arrivals of trains, how many people had been selected for work, and how many people had been selected to be gassed. And so they were sending those messages back to Berlin. And so they absolutely know.
Erbelding thinks that this woman is Ruth Astracini. She worked at Bergen-Belsen, which was a notorious concentration camp. And she was eventually arrested and sentenced at a trial in Krakow in March 1948. The woman in this photograph is believed to be Charlotte Schunzel-Bartsch. She testified at Karl Hocker's trial that she sent messages back to her superiors informing them of the number of prisoners in Auschwitz being sent to the gas chambers. It raises the obvious question, which is, what are you capable of given the right or the wrong circumstances?
Right. And I think we do, to some extent, a disservice when we talk about the Holocaust and we only talk about victims. That is incredibly important to memorialize them, not just because of how they died, but because of who they were and how they lived. But we also are not going to figure out how the Holocaust happened by studying the victims. So we have to study the perpetrators. We have to look at how German society got to the point where all of these young people are volunteering for this work and thinking that this work is important, and why their government has taught them that and how they have come to believe it.
As soon as permission is given from higher up, from government, it accelerates.
Irene Weiss is a 93-year-old survivor of Auschwitz whose entire family was sent to Auschwitz, and she's one of the few people who survived from her family. Irene Weiss wasn't shocked by what she saw in the album. She has said that she has seen that side of man before.
In Germany, the propaganda and the teaching them of how to think was so strong. It was so effective. They were taught that they're doing it for a higher purpose. I was testifying against two Nazi Germans. They were worked in Auschwitz. And this old man, he said, I was trained to obey orders. I obeyed orders. I was told that the Jews are hurting my country, that they are destroying my country. The propaganda, patriotism of his kind was so strong that he couldn't let go of it in a trial, couldn't let go.